What was interesting and fascinating for me is the take that Dustin Lance Black had from a writer's perspective on J. Edgar Hoover's life. Because I knew about J. Edgar Hoover. There was a project very early on that I was involved with where I looked into his past and his history and sort of understood, I suppose, who he was on a very peripheral level. But he dug very deep in this screenplay. He made me understand his motivations for the first time, who he was on a personal level, the idea of sacrifice and what it is to be of service to your country and sacrifice any personal relationship, any family life for the service and the good of your country. And that is a pretty hard thing for me to wrap my head around, and most of us as actors try to understand this concept. What is it to say, you know what, I'm almost joining a priesthood here, and the FBI is my church. And what is important for the FBI is important to me, and if that means not having any personal life, that means not having any personal life. And understanding the motivations of his mother and how she was this strange stage mom in a way in the world of politics. She wanted her son to rise to great glory and fame in the world of politics, and he lived with her until he was 40 years old. I mean, this is a very bizarre figure in American history, but a man that held a position of power for 8 different presidents for over 50 years. His power was unchecked, and his belief system from the 1920s carried on all the way to the 1960s. It's a fascinating portrait of how absolute power corrupts absolutely, and how if there aren't great checks and balances in our political systems, things can go awry, because he did some very detestable things towards the end of his life. Well, we did the younger sort of Hoover years for the first month and a half, and then we had a couple weeks towards the end where I got to make the transition into the older J. Edgar, which was very beneficial for me, having sort of lived his life out as a young man, and then we went through this, sort of rigorous makeup process for 5-6 hours a day to transform and to also have the weight, not only on a physical level of J. Edgar Hoover, but the weight of that many years of experience. So, to do a scene where I'm speaking to a young Robert F. Kennedy and calling him a young man and, a little whippersnapper, and you're still wet behind the ears, it was very beneficial for me to be able to play out the early years. But it was very claustrophobic towards the end, You almost have to slow your heart rate down and slow your movements down and change who you are on a physical level. I can't say I enjoyed it. It was incredibly challenging, and like I said, I wanted to tear this makeup off every single day and sort of break through. But it was incredibly important to show that transition in J. Edgar Hoover, to see what he became, this political dinosaur that just held on to his political beliefs for way too long.